Thank you for stopping by Ballistic Barbecue. On today's video, I'm going to be dry aging a 14.3 pound USDA prime brisket using UMAI Dry. Let's get going. Okay, for those of you who may have never heard of UMAI Dry, basically it's a system that allows you to dry age meat at home. It's very easy to do, it's very cost effective, and the most important thing is it works. It works really well. Little disclaimer, I am not being paid at all by UMAI Dry. I am a big fan of this product. I stand behind this product, and I've become personal friends with the owners of the company. So this is just something I've always wanted to try doing, is a brisket. But again, great product, and I'll talk to you about how it works. Basically, the UMAI Dry product is a special bag. This is not a regular bag, and it's kind of I guess, forms a membrane with the meat, and it allows for an oxygen exchange. It allows for the moisture to leave the meat, but it doesn't let bad things in, and it doesn't emit any odors. There's no odor exchange or anything, so you end up with a very clean, dry aged product. And the cool thing is you can do it in your refrigerator at home. So again, you're not taking up a lot of space with some cumbersome piece of equipment or anything. It's basically the meat in your refrigerator. It's a good deal. Let me show you the meat that I'm going to be dry aging. Again, this is the first time I've ever dry aged a brisket, and I want to find out if it's actually worth dry aging a brisket. So this is a USDA prime brisket. It's 14.3 pounds. And you know, normally I probably would have went with just a choice, a USDA choice brisket, but luckily we have a butcher here that, and Chris over at Mother's Barbecue can vouch for this. They sell their prime briskets at the choice price, so why would I get a choice when I can get a prime for the same amount of money? So what we're going to do next is bag this thing, and we're going to do what they call the clean exchange technique. So basically, I've washed the cryovac bag here with hot water and antibacterial soap, rinsed it really well, dried it. Now what I'm going to do is cut off the top, walk it over the sink, and I'm going to drain out all the purge liquid that's inside of here, and then we're going to bag it. I'll show you the little technique that keeps your kitchen clean. So excuse me a moment while I drain the bag. All right, so again, the cryovac bag thoroughly clean, thoroughly dried, top cut off, liquid drained into the sink. Let me show you, before we start bagging, I'll show you what the kit looks like. Basically, this is the strip loin kit, and it's got 3 of these strip loin bags in it. They're 16 by 28 inches, and these will do a 14 to 20 pound chunk of meat. So totally big enough for this 14.3 pound brisket here. The other thing that it has is what they call vac mounts that are also in the bag right here, and it's a fibrous kind of a membrane strip that'll help us evacuate the air out of the dry age bag using just a traditional, just standard vacuum seal machine. So anyway, let's get going with that clean transfer technique. First thing I'm going to do is cuff this dry age bag. Open end of the cryovac brisket bag into the UMAI Dry bag. And I just kind of lay it on my cutting board here and just kind of walk it in. Voila. What I'm going to do is just pull out the cryovac now, and I just kind of like to wad it into my hand as I do it. There we go, relatively clean. Drop it in the garbage there. Let me wash my hands. I got a little gooey stuff on my hand here. I'll be back in a sec. All right, so let's get to sealing this thing. Obviously, open end goes towards the machine. I like to kind of get that piece of meat as far into the end corners as possible. Now obviously this bag is much wider than the opening of our vacuum sealer machine. So we need to basically kind of weld a diagonal bead using the heat seal strip on this vacuum sealer machine before we can start evacuating any air out. So let's open this up. I'm turned at an angle here. All right, so again, we're going to need this vac mouse to suck the air out of this bag. If you notice, regular vacuum seal bags have that one textured side. These do not. And those textures are actually to allow this machine to draw air out. So what I want to do is burn a bead or melt a bead on this bag, seal it here, and I want to leave enough of an opening to where I can get this vac mouse into the bag here. So let's go ahead and straighten it down as much as we can. Looks good. We'll go ahead and hit the seal. So there's no air being drawn, it's just melting a bead. All right, here we go, now looks good. You see the bead right there. Now I can see where it missed right there, so that's no big deal. Simply lay this across, do another bead. All right, now it's fully sealed. So the next thing will be drawing a vacuum on this bag. What I want to do first is kind of crumble it up here, get some wrinkles, and that's just going to kind of help the vac mouse. So I will insert this. You can see my measurement was pretty much spot on. Now, most of these newer vacuum sealers, they'll have a moist setting. And basically what that does is it's just telling the machine, hey, there may be some liquid coming into the heat bar. Let's pump a little bit more temperature in there to make sure we can get a good seal. A lot of times with big pieces of meat like this, yeah, a little of the juice may get in here. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit the moist. If you do not have a moist setting, then I would suggest double welding, so sealing it twice. Let's see here. So try to get it as tight as we can. So I'm going to turn this on, and as it's drying the vacuum, I'm going to be kind of massaging the air out of the bag. And I'm not expecting this to get a full-on vacuum like a vacuum seal bag would. We just want to make sure that this bag material adheres to the outside of the meat. So let's go ahead. We have moist hit. Let's vacuum seal. All right, so there we are. I got a nice seal there, you can see. Now we are ready for the next step, which is the easiest part, putting it in a refrigerator. One thing that's important is that you do not use some ancient refrigerator. You want to use a modern refrigerator. The reason being is there's actually air circulating inside of a modern fridge. The other thing is we want to keep whatever meat you're dry aging elevated above the shelf on some type of rack. And this is, I just use a basic grid rack. I use these a lot for cooking pork shoulders, but you know, like a cookie rack will work fine. So we are going to dry age this for 35 days. As soon as it's done with the dry aging process, you'll see me again and I'll show you how to trim this up. And then we're going to do another video where I cook this and we'll see if it's worth dry aging a brisket. See you guys in 35 days. 35 days later, we are back, and this is what this brisket looks like now after 35 days of dry aging. I weighed this thing, and it went from 14.3 pounds down to 8.1 pounds. So that's a loss of about 43% of its original weight, which is the norm for dry aging. So when you think about it, the moisture is leaving, again, through this membrane. Those enzymes are going to work, tenderizing the meat inside, and as the water leaves, the meat shrinking. And this weight loss happens in the pit while you're cooking it anyway. So I'm guessing that the weight that I lost in my fridge while it was dry aging would have been lost in the pit. And I'm expecting this not to shrink much from this size as I'm cooking it. Anyway, let's peel this membrane off and take a look. So I'm going to be asked right off the bat, I'll tell you, there is no foul smell at all. Actually, very little smell. But you can see it's been left with this kind of a waxy bark on the fat and the meat side. And the weight loss is very apparent, especially when you take a look at this end of the flat here. It's much thinner. So again, I would have liked to have had a thicker flat, but this is what I had available at the store. Anyway, the next step is to start removing this bark now. First thing I'm going to do is just kind of trim off this dried meat here from the end of the flat. It smells really good. So you can see it's a lot thinner than it was. Now, simply because I want the maneuverability of a smaller knife, I'm going to use my boning knife to just kind of get this going here. And on this fat cap, I don't want to remove a lot of this fat. I just want to get this in this dry aged kind of bark off of here. All right, here we go with the fat side. Now let's go ahead and get to that lean side. It's funny, you can see the the grid on the bottom from the rack that I was keeping it on in the fridge. So it's just the same thing. This will be a little bit tougher just because it's not fat. This is the lean here. So here we are. We're done. We're done trimming. You can see this meat's a much deeper color than it used to be, much deeper red since the dry aging process. And yeah, it's a lot lighter. I went ahead and weighed the scraps that I had, the desiccated meat scraps and the fat trimmings, and we've trimmed off a little over 2 pounds of again, desiccated meat. So again, I'm not too concerned about that just because a brisket shrinks anyway, so I'm expecting not as much shrinkage in the pit here. And I'm debating whether or not I'm going to cook this with the flat separated from the point, but I think we'll see. I'll make up my mind. I'll be cooking this tomorrow. So again, some questions answered, I guess. Why would you want to do this? Again, dry aging meat, it concentrates that flavor, and those enzymes are in there tenderizing this meat. So I'm hoping it's going to be much more tender than the average brisket. Questions I have that need to be answered, again, this is the first time I've ever done this with a brisket, is how is this going to affect the cook time? Is it going to cook quicker than normal? Is the stall going to be at a different temp? Is it going to last as long? Again, the final temperature when it's done. It's going to be interesting. So I'll be cooking this thing tomorrow, and the next video I upload will be this cook. See you guys in a bit.